11 a.m. LinkedIn Live. We're here every day with the Hour of Empower. We've got our, great ensemble today that continues from the 2 weeks before. We've got Christy Howard here, who's been here for a long time, has brought a great deal of value, and is seeing value in what we're doing here. And we've got Harvey Tuck here, who is in his third visit. It's almost like Jeopardy or something coming back. And we just had a little talk prior to this, and it looks like this is really resonating with a lot of people. Everybody that's been here on any consistent level is getting tremendous exposure and all of a sudden demand for what they always had, but couldn't get the visibility and their true voice to be heard. So with that, today's word is tenacity. Chat's open. I see we already have a few people. We're going to kind of go round robin. And our whole goal here is to bring value and takeaways that you can use and get answers to questions and provide questions for answers. And that's what we're here for. So with that said, Christy, what do you think about tenacity?
I live for being tenacious. I guess that's the word, tenacious. So I said to my husband this morning, I'm like, what comes to mind when you say tenacity? He goes, you. He's like, you never give up. And he said that it's the most important word for success. When you're always succeeded. So with my background with some B2B selling, I always said, there's no's a sentence. However, no means just not right now, not yet. Let's keep on having the conversation. You just keep on going. Just keep on going. So, and that's how I've done my life. I don't believe in you can't. You just keep on going. Don't quit. What about you here, Harvey? I was going to call you Harry.
Yeah, absolutely. But before I do that, I've got to say hello to Raquel, to Charles, to Dean, and to Eugene. It's lovely and to Kelly as well. It's great to see you all there. And hello. I was going to do the multitask thing and try and respond, but I can't do that yet. So I'm going to say hello in live form.
And I say hi to everybody. So there.
But absolutely, no, I'm completely with you on what you've said about tenacity. I think it's the one word that I think we can all empathize with. I think everybody, when they get up and they go through their day, is showing tenacity, whatever they're doing. I think tenacity is just keeping going, and it can be keeping going in the most mundane fashion, in your ordinary life. It doesn't have to be something great you've achieved that day. It's just staying there, keeping going. And I just think it's such a relatable word. So I'm really, really looking forward to getting into it and hearing what everyone's got to say. Oh, Peter's here, Nina's here. Hi, Peter. Hi, Nina.
Well, let me put them on the screen because it's important that people get recognized who participate. And like I say, whoever is participating in the audience should have an opportunity to be on the stage, because everybody's voice is just as important as everybody else's, and it's a reflection of their life. And there's so much that can be offered through hearing someone, but also to responding to someone, supporting someone. So it's not just, here's who I am and what I do. It's fine. Somebody says, that's exactly who I am and what I do, or who I want to be and what I plan to do. Can we talk? And it's really developing more sharing, more conversations, and you get beyond the superficial. Rocky's here. She's just great. I've been tagging her. Mike's coming on the show. Everybody who's in anybody's group is open to appearing on my show. Right. So I'm into building and collaborating and making bigger circles with everybody. So I think this is a foundation for it. Charles, haven't seen you a couple of days, but I've been seeing your post. Great guy. So I think Charles had the responsibility of coming up with the key word. and it's stuck ever since. And look at how much benefit it's brought to the show and the people. Hello, Rocky. So great to see you. Good morning, Kelly. Kelly's like the foundation of what we're doing here. Harvey, it's Peter Hughes. I've come to say hello. Nina White's here. Thank you for being here, Nina. Sure appreciate your attendance. Dean's here every day. Love to see Dean. I like that picture better, Dean. Kelly Collins, have never seen you before, but welcome. It's so great to see new faces. Jitendra from India has been a regular the last few days. Brian, good morning. Paul, and Paul's just tremendous. Happy Friday. Great seeing you all again. Anna Regina says, I'm coming to say hello, you guys. Thank you for your timeline. Danny, I'm here, but connection seems to be all over the shop here. Paul, wow, good morning. Good morning to you also. Hello from Texas, everyone. A lot of people in Texas. Good morning, Jean. Rocky comes back with good morning to Paul. Gosh, good morning from North Carolina. Happy Friday. Christy is also here in
multitasking now.
Hello to everybody. Kelly's just great. So we caught up, which is not easy to do, but we sure love your participation and recognizing you. And my little tie-in with Tenacity, it's usually a result of being balanced in what you do. Right? Because to be tenacious, you can't always be overwhelmed. You know, you can't be carrying a load that's just too heavy, especially long term. And tenacity is really, how do you go through a marathon, right? Without giving up and without and staying confident and enthusiastic. And that's why I think everything we're doing here is maybe slowing things down for people, to reflect a little bit more, to redefine a little bit more, get things in the proper balance. And then it's an easier load, right? It's like, where are you going? What are you taking with you? And what can you comfortably support? You know, even cars have limits of how much weight they can carry or tow. So anyways, that's what I want to do, is put in perspective, give everybody a chance to figure out, how tenacious are you? How many things have you quit lately? And how many things have you persevered through? And maybe it's a mix and a match, right? You know, some things just don't prove to be worth what you thought it was, and that giving up is really giving yourself a new direction. That's not losing, you know. But how many people come so close, a day away, a call away, and all of a sudden everything turns, and they never would have known that, you know. And I always say, if not this, then what? If not that person, then who, right? And if not now, when? And at that point, it's like, you're already where you need to be. It's, what are you going to do with it? And what are you willing to do for it? So with that, Christy, a lot of great comments coming through today.
Yeah, now that I paired it, now I can reply. No, I mean, I've spent my whole life being this way, because my whole thought process is, if I quit now, how will I know? How will I know if I was going to be successful? And through that, through the years and through, growing up, it brought me confidence of believing in myself, believing in my goals, and believing that if I continue to go through even the bad stuff, go through it with a goal in sight, with a thought in sight, that something will come out of it. And through that process, let's say what you wanted doesn't happen, you grow through that process.
Mm-hmm.
And you cheer yourself on, going, I didn't give up. I believed in myself. So, I mean, as I said, I live my life this way. I don't believe in giving up. I met my husband when I was 42. And I spent my whole, 30s and 20s. Oh, Christy, you're so picky. You just need to go get married. And then I'd be like, well, how those divorces going for you? I'm like, look, when I know, I will know when I meet this person. We met on our first date. I said to him, I'm like, don't really know you, but we're going to get married one day. And he always tells a story. He's like, and most men would run. He stuck around for 5 years. But during the time we were apart, we didn't have any conversations. We weren't, we different states, but I always knew in my heart, because he's the only man that I ever felt this way about. And I always said that he would come back in my life. And 19 years later, we're married. But I never gave up of what I felt. And even though I went through some hard times during these times, I knew that this is where I was supposed to be. And a lot of people are like, oh, just, give up. I mean, go out with that person, just settle and everything. And I'm like, no, this is not who I am. I'm going to believe in myself. And that's the whole tenacity is about believing in yourself and having the confidence and stop listening to the outside world, believing that you can succeed in anything you put your mind to it, even though it's hard, even though you're going to have these naysayers. If you just continue to go through it, you'll get through it. And it might not be successful of how you have that expectation, because trust me, my expectation 19 years ago is not how it is today, but that's just life.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So, Harvey, looking at all these comments, I mean, I'll just pick one out, which is kind of interesting. Where is it? Well, Christine says, had a few people, friends and family tell me to put my master's degree on pause. And I say, no, I'm getting so much out of it and will graduate next year. Going to keep on plugging. Well, one thing before I turn over to Harvey, tenacity is really something that doesn't have to be related to struggle. When people say tenacious, I look at someone as being aggressive, proactive, taking the initiative, and they're tenacious. I mean, they're grinding it out, and they can do it with a smile on their face based on the progress they're making or the value they're providing. So Harvey, what do you say?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, there's been some amazing comments, and I've been frantically scribbling down some of them because they disappear off the screen too quickly. But I think touching on something you said at the beginning there, Don, about balance. I also think tenacity is about having the strength to be who you truly are, whoever that is. And I think sometimes your story is not heroic and it's not necessarily the best, but if you are true to who you believe, you've got a goal in your mind of what you need to achieve and how you want to do it, then you're going to get there. And that's what tenacity brings you. And I think that can come from anywhere and from everybody. Peter was here, and Peter's got a fantastic story. It's not the happiest story, and he's still going through it, but he has a goal, and he's absolutely undeniably him. And I think that's a fantastic thing to do and to be. But the word that you said there as well, balance, I think it does need balance. So I think absolutely you need to be who you are, but respect the fact that you might need to blend some things into that, but keep that goal in mind. There was a few people there that said some comments that I wanted to pick up on. Danny said that giving up and quitting are not the same thing, and that really resonated with me, actually. Yeah. I think if you plan, if you've said, well, look, this isn't for me now, I've tried doing this, I've given it a very good go, and I'm going to try something different. I've got a new plan now, of which I'm enthused about, I'm excited about, I'm determined about, and I'm tenacious about. Quitting in a negative sense and without really thinking it through is a different thing. So I think that's a really important thing to sort of to learn the difference between the two. And Christy as well, what you said about the story about how you met your husband, that really resonated with me, because that's exactly what my wife said. She said to one of her friends when we met, I'm going to marry that man one day.
We know when we know. It's women's intuition. We know.
That's it. And so that story really resonated. I think Charles as well. Charles made a point there, and Don made a point that tenacity is not a sprint. Tenacity is a marathon. It's a long-term thing, and it has ups and downs, but it's that determination and that tenacity to continue and to keep going, which I think is great.
Yeah, and I believe if you look at so many of these individuals, they're so plugged in to where we are with what we're talking about. And another thing with any word, especially tenacity, there are no absolutes, right? So at a certain point, you can go half speed, right, and still stay on the journey, right? You're not moving as fast, but you're moving forward. You're learning as you go, and that's why you got to count your celebrations and your victories every day. You remember the things that didn't work out more maybe than the things that do, or the things you take for granted. But once you start adding up the score and you keep having a winning scorecard every day, could be 4-3, whatever it is, you now know you're doing something and you're going somewhere. And the other thing is there are no outcomes. There's only continuums.
Yep.
Right? Nothing ever ends. It just continues. It's not like a final destination, because you're the quitter or the winner or the perseverer. And I think, one saying that sticks is, if you got a big enough why, you figure out the how to, right? So if something is just absolutely essential for you, you can never give up on it, because if you do, you give up on yourself, and if you have a sense of urgency with tenacity, you might be able to compress the time frame, right? Just getting it done. So anyways, Nick's here. I haven't seen Nick in a while. I'm having based on learning from one's experience. Learning from somebody's experience is a gift. What people have to go through to tell that story. People hear the story, they don't understand what it was to get to there, to deal with it, to get through it. And at that point, everybody's equal, because everybody's at that same level together at that point. Lillian's here. I was just mentioning to Harvey and Christy that Lillian's going to come on the show and tell her story. Lovely lady, wonderful contributor. And, even Harvey was saying prior to the show, do you ever get anybody that says something bad or, acts up? And honestly, we don't, because I think people are allergic to honesty and authenticity who aren't honest and authentic. Right. It's not an easy hunting grounds, let's say. Paul's here. I'd love to have Paul back on the show. And with that, Christy, what do you think of all these comments and what's going on here?
They're great. If you can pull back Eugene's comment about having the seasons,
okay.
Yeah. Eugene is great. We all have seasons in life. We have all seasons of people in our life. And, some of them make us where we have to be more tenacious than others. And some of us, we're just going to flow through it. It's just understanding its seasons. We have 4 seasons in the year. There's times that we might just be standing still, just breathing and looking what's around us, being observant before we go forward again. Because we can't just, there's times in life that you just go forward. You jump out of that plane. We've heard the stories of Kelly and I jumping out of the plane. We just go. However, there's other times where you just have to step, breathe, and look around you. And it's like the blueprint of saying, this is where I want to be. So this is where, I need to build it up to be successful and get through what I need to go through. Great conversations and such new people. There's some great new people here, which is fun. But, Harvey, your thought, going back to your wife, she at least told her girlfriend. I told my husband. He was like, It's a little bit different.
I think she told me.
But he knows I'm always right. He always knows that I'm right when I say something because I know what I know. But anyway, so it's all you, Harvey. I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, you picked up on something there that I was also going to be picking up on, the seasons in life. I like that. Also, Matt as well. Hi, Matt. How you doing? But he resonated with that and said that life is a book full of chapters, and that moving forward in each of those different chapters is showing tenacity. And I think that's exactly the point I was touching on at the beginning, that we can all relate to this. And I quite like the fact that life is a book. A book is full of different chapters. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but you have to show tenacity to get through all of those, and you have a learning and an experience from it all. And when you get to the end of the book, you've enjoyed the whole story, good and bad. So I think that both of those comments were fantastic, and there it is on the screen there. But they were both fantastic and really, really resonated with me. Dean said, you cannot lose if you don't give up. And I think that's a great thing to say. I think it's applicable most of the time. But I do think that going back to the quitting versus changing your mind, I think that's relevant there. I was going to share a story actually about my wife, because I think that this resonated with her as well. My wife has been in the care industry and has been a nurse for a lot of her career, and it was something that she loved doing, absolutely loved doing it, and had a break from it for a while. But she desperately wanted to get back into it and kept getting jobs, but they weren't right for her. And in the end, she realized that the industry physically and mentally wasn't for her anymore. And she pursued a different career. She studied hard, and has got a successful new career. But she showed tenacity by continually trying this, the world she loved. But she realized it wasn't for her, and made that bold decision then to move on. But that wasn't quitting. That was a decision after showing tenacity. So you can change your mind. You can do something new. You can stop doing something you were doing, but still show tenacity while you're doing all of that. It's part of those chapters.
I think that's so valuable. And, the key to so many things is the game is always between you and yourself, right? You define what winning and losing is, what failure is, what success is. Giving yourself enough credit when you deserve it, as much as maybe some discredit. But, it's all, again, interpretation, definition, application. Is the word means whatever you want it to mean, right? It can mean 1,000 different things to 1,000 different people. Some look at it as an attribute. Some look at it as something to be avoided. To really dig in and grind it out, because it's really about how you use your time and how you learn from the times that you use. And if you can learn a little bit more, even if someone says, I'm going to get 5 rejections before I get accepted, the first 5 are expected already, right? Versus putting in a proposal, someone says no, and you think, hey, they must know something you don't, or their judgment is worth more than yours, even though you put all the time and thought into preparing it, and they may never have looked at it or read it, right? And I think you owe yourself the opportunity is not being dependent on any one thing that would consider this will blow up everything I'm doing, right? And on LinkedIn and what we're seeing on LinkedIn Live, you've got so many pre-qualified, vetted, strategic partners here who are looking to be more, do more, and know the only way they're going to get there is by joining forces with other people. And if they're right in front of you, right? If you went to a market for something and it was right in front of you, wouldn't you pick it up and take it home? And it's things you do with items that don't take a lot of courage, like buy something, return it. That doesn't take, it's not going to wrestle with your mind. But somebody you've known for a long time, and to Harvey's point, just like his wonderful wife's story, it doesn't fit anymore. A person who did so much to get you there is not always responsible for taking you where you decide to change, and they don't. Right. And, and turning it over to Christy, one thing I learned is every ending is another new beginning.
Absolutely.
Right. So until you take yourself out of something, can you now put yourself in it? You can't be on both sides of the fence at the same time. So Christy, I mean, this is unbelievable, the response we're getting on this topic. And these new names are fabulous.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Maria's comments. And so she's saying quitting and giving up may seem the same, but they're not. They're two different forms of letting go. And then she goes into quitting is our decision to let go or pull the plug on something that is not serving its intended purpose. Giving up is when we hand our decision to a voice that tells us we should stop, even though we still value and desire the thing we are holding. Tenacity is knowing the difference. So going back to Harvey and Susie, right? Your wife's name is Susie?
Yeah.
Susie. She didn't give up. We just change our mind. We change our direction. We still have that passion of what we have. I just don't believe, for me, I don't believe in saying I quit. Well, I have quit jobs, but that's a different story. But it's just sort of because it wasn't working for who I was. But I changed my direction of where I needed to be. But going and then saying we have different, the different seasons, we have different chapters. Our book ends when we're underneath the other side of the earth. And our chapters might repeat ourselves. You might pick up another chapter going, I've gone through this before. It's because we need to learn something a little bit better and do it better. And that's where your tenacity is coming and going, okay, I've gone through this chapter, but I still have that passion. So now I'm going to learn with what I've learned from and continue to go forward and be successful. Am I making any sense? You know how sometimes I don't make sense.
No, making perfect sense to me.
Everybody's learning Christianese, my own language.
Well, we're learning to get better with everybody learning to get better. Right? So everybody's a work in progress. Everything's a lesson. Everything is a blessing when you can share lessons with others who can help avoid what you just went through or ease whatever they're going through. And, knowing you're not alone makes being tenacious easier, right? There's nothing like two people being tenacious together. Those are what they call workout buddies. Right? You go to the gym and because of the other person, you're there more often. You might stay longer. You have something more in common, and that's really building strength because you don't need as much tenacity. And tenacity is something that you use just like another gear. Once you get to where you arrive, then you cultivate, right? And you start harvesting. You don't keep fighting. I mean, fighting can only go so far if you consider that with tenacity. So Kelly says quitting can be a strategic decision made after evaluating the situation where giving up is often an emotional response to difficulty or failure. And usually it's frustration. People give up because they know they can do it over time. They just get tired of getting knocked down and getting doors closed on them and people who are dream stealers who live and work around them. That continually tell them what they can't do. And after a while that they can't hold on. And that's what I think having a support group is so important when people give you the opposite. I've been there. I know what it is. You'll get through it. If you can't get through it, I'll help you. What it is just keep it. Don't close the lights on whatever you're doing. Give yourself a night. Give yourself a day. Whatever you can do today, a day's not going to hurt it, especially if you're quitting. Because what you're saying is you're closing the door behind you. And another thing that I think kept me more tenacious is I was always curious. I would always say, if I bought a ticket to the movie, I got to see the ending. You know, if I started something and I'm so close to the result, right? I'm not going to beat myself. Somebody's or something's going to have to beat me. And you know, it reminds me of a speech I'll never forget. It was a gentleman who came on the stage. He was a Vietnam vet, lost his legs on a landmine, and before he was done, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And what he said is, you know, he prayed, and you know, he was able to be saved. And since then, he's got 4 boys. He rides. He does everything. Been in 49 states. And the last thing he said, how do you beat a man who can't quit or won't quit, right? How can you beat anybody, right? You can't, because you know if they keep going, they're going to get there. And more importantly, they're going to do what other people couldn't or wouldn't do to get there. And that's why they're going to win. So it's not who you are, it's how you apply what you want for yourself. And that'll make you a different who you are. Christy, what do you think? Pretty deep
Well,
here.
I've shared stories about my father. And it's been 23, 24 years since he passed. But when he lost his legs, well, his leg, you know, he turned around. He loved to snow ski and golf. And he turned around and was like, I'm going to relearn. And it wasn't easy. You know, this is a 6'2", you know, strong man. And I remember seeing him at, it was in Delaware, DuPont, the medical place, watching him how to learn how to walk again. But he was not going to quit. He wasn't going to say, hey, you know, I lost a leg. I can't do this. I mean, the only thing he couldn't do was play handball again, which is understandable. I mean, with, you know, a fake leg, it's a little bit tough. But he taught me, don't give up, because you don't know what's on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I have battled depression, and yes, there's been times in my life where I'm like, I'm done, I'm checking out. And I would pause and be like, but if you check out, you don't know what's on the other side. You know, you don't know how this is going to end. You don't know how this chapter is going to end in your life. So it's not time to check out. It's not time to end this book. You just continue to go through it and know that whatever you're going to get through, you'll learn from it, you'll grow from it. And I can say that now. During those times, I wasn't that great mindset, but that helped me be able to get the confidence and be able to coach other people with the confidence when they're dealing with depression and they're dealing with struggles, because we do get through it. And there's always some kind of lesson there. It might not be fun, but having the belief in yourself of not giving up and knowing that you are the only competition, I believe, is yourself. It's like playing golf. You're playing against a little white ball. Okay, don't take that white ball so seriously, because you're playing really against yourself. Believe in yourself and believe in what you have, your dreams, your goals. And it's okay for you to pivot, change directions, and say, hey, this isn't exactly where I thought that I wanted to go. I just learned some stuff, so now I'm going to pivot and go someplace else. Because it's your book, it's your life, it's your chapter, your chapters. So it just, you know, believing in yourself and believing that you are able to do, you're capable of doing anything you want to. I mean, no one's stopping you except yourself.
Yeah, and you have more access than ever before and opportunities for shows like this. I mean, where would I know Charles in Hong Kong or Ambimbola in Nigeria? And what it shows is what's old doesn't work anymore like what's new, right? Before you had to go to a library to learn something. Right now you can Google it, go to YouTube. I mean, we got tremendous information, tremendous access. And you know, tenacity is about being tenacious for yourself, not just what you apply yourself to, right? It is to really be your best fan You know, get behind yourself whenever you can. I mean, when you do something wrong, aren't you always looking for somebody to forgive you? Right? I mean, you know, you just feel bad until they do, right? If it says, I'm sorry for doing that, well, that's not good enough yet, you know, or something like that, you're still in debt. So if you cannot be that person first who says, now I'm going to make you pay because I'm going to repeat this loop in your mind so much, right? Versus breaking free of your thinking. It's all about what you think is what you become and where you go and how long you stay there and how well you do there. And I think that's why Hour of Empower, it's about changing the channel, right? I mean, if you're watching something that you're not enjoying, but somehow you keep watching it, you know, I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Las Vegas one time and I got so sick as soon as I got there that I didn't leave the room really for like 3 days. And I'm in this town. I had things planned, and I was so weak that I watched Three's Company. I mean, we're talking years ago, and it was a rerun, and I could deal with that. But then the Ropers came on, you know, which was a spinoff, which was awful. And I was so weak, and it wasn't remote control. So the only way to turn it off was to get out of bed and walk to the TV. And I couldn't believe it, you know, how I couldn't even do that. And the point is that was a point in time. Everything's a point in time. Why flag it to say, whoops, I'm over the cliff, I'm out of here? I mean, who are you fooling? You're talking to yourself, right? When you quit yourself, you're going to find yourself with yourself the next day, right? And now you got nothing. You're at scratch. So with that said, Harvey.
Yeah, wow. I mean, there's been some amazing comments coming up and some amazing stories in the comments as well. I'm picking up on something that Matt said there about his wife who'd unfortunately had a nasty accident, spent a whole year learning to walk again. I mean, my goodness, does that show some tenacity there? I think what's really important here is the fact that tenacity can be shown while you're getting help from other people. Okay. I think tenacity doesn't have to necessarily come from your beating heart. It can come from a collection of different things that are exterior to you, friends, family, connections. Tenacity can be a group thing. You know, I have tenacity to help other people. It's absolutely at my core to help other people. But in the same way, people are helping me help other people. And the more I'm helping people, the more people are helping me to help people, because it's a great big community. So I'm feeling tenacious, but with absolute support and encouragement from all walks of my life, and certainly from the wonderful people here. I mean, Peter actually said something earlier on, and he said tenacity can be confrontational. And I think that that's a really interesting point, because if you think of tenacity as blind focus on something, that sheer determination and ignoring all other factors, then maybe. But I don't think that's what tenacity is for me. Tenacity is about having that goal, being determined, but also being open and flexible enough for other people to be able to help you with that tenacity. And I think when that comes together, that's when you get that real strength. And in fact, that brings me on. I have to have a prop now. So I've got a prop again. Now this prop, right? And I don't know if we can see this. Okay. This was my father's and his father's, and it's for sharpening chisels. And it's sat in my workshop for a long time. And the reason I like this as a prop for this word today is because this sits here for probably 70 years. All it's done all its life is something for another tool. It sharpened things. And when you sharpen things on this, you have to keep rubbing it up and down to achieve the sharpness of the tool. And I just like the fact that it it provides a connection to the fact that you need to work with other people and do things for other people, and you can still show tenacity. So yeah, I love the stories that are coming in. Fantastic.
Well, and that's the key, is stories are everything you need to know. And it could be any story, and everybody. And Christy reminds me of my grandmother, who at 92 had a stroke and learned to talk, learned to speak, and lives 5 more years, a very active life. And you look at somebody and you say, if they can do it, I can do it. They inspire you. And tenacity is one more of spirit and attitude than it is physical labor. It's easy to build a wall if you got the bricks and you see what's going to happen. But until you win, you're wondering. Until someone lets you in, you're questioning. And you need things to help you deal with those doubts, because that's what starts sneaking in. That little reminder, well, did you bite off more than you could chew, or giving up too much for too little? And that's where you start majoring in the minors by measuring little things that are in process, right? If someone says it's going to take 2 weeks to send it to you, after 3 days, you're not frantic, like, where is it? You already know what it's going to take. And if you've been through enough, you always know it's going to probably cost more, take longer, and surprise me in ways I would have never imagined, but it'll get done and I'll move on. And I think it's really just the word playing through is really a quality word for tenacity, is like, how much distance between you and clear are you, right? 100 feet, 100 yards, you're still just as concerned till you get to safety. And that's, again, being your own best friend. Maria's here. There's nothing wrong with quitting sometimes to start a new direction. Do you think quitting takes on a negative tone? Yeah, I think when you say I'm a quitter, no one really looks at you and says, boy, I want to be more of you. But if you, right? But if you say, I was strong enough and smart enough to know I was halfway into something that wasn't going to work, and I decided not to throw good time or good money after something that wasn't going to work, that's not quitting. That's reevaluating and redirecting. In a car, if you don't use the wheel or the gas, you're going to end up in places you never thought you could. So, everything, like they say, a rocket ship used to be 97% off course, and the gyroscope would bring it back to where it needed to be, right? And you're going to continue to go, kind of go off course. And that's where support groups come in, is maybe you're not aware of it in the early stages. Maybe it's creeping, right? And then somebody around you said, by the way, I'm noticing this. And I, well, thank you. I didn't notice it. Or, hey, we can talk about this. I mean, isn't it great? How many people, if they would have had 10 more minutes to say there's someone right next to you, you can talk about what you're about to do or what you're going through. That could maybe change people from saying, yeah, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should give it another night. You're not looking to change people. You're looking to slow people down enough that you feel they're making an honest decision. And I think when people do quit, that's when they need the most empathy too, right? Because they showed it was too much. Doesn't mean they were bad. Just means that at the time, what happens if everything's balanced and then 4 things fall on you, right? You're going to have to make some decisions. So I think if you take it day by day, I mean, I've been doing this show for 10 months every day, but I could have never done this if someone said, do this 10 months every day, but I can do it every day. And what it takes is not difficult. But if you overwhelm yourself and, and say, wow, that's a mountain I could never climb. But, you could climb 10 steps a day. Might take you forever to get there, but at least you're moving and you're doing. And you know what I always believe, and it's always come true? There are so many things I've yet to know I'll get to. But more importantly, there's people will come in my life this year I never anticipated and could maybe make up that difference between me not having to fear, am I going to get there? But really, if you visualize what it's going to feel like when you get there, what is your goal that's going to be so valuable to make the climb worth it? Christy?
Well, it goes back to, and I've learned many times, never say never. I said I'd never live in California. I've lived in California. I said I'd never live in Florida. I lived in Florida. I said I'd never get married. I'm married. I said I'd never, do certain jobs. I've done those. So it's sort of like, don't put that negative out going, I'll never do this, because you don't. No. Because when you're doing something and you change directions, that never is going to be like, you're doing it. I said I'd never jump out of a plane. I mean, now it's like, bring it on. So when we put ourselves to a point like, here's a stop. I'm never going to do this. This isn't who I am. I'm never going to try it. I'm never going to do this. You're not allowing yourself to live. And so then when you turn around and say, okay, and then you start walking slowly, and then you start seeing that goal. And you start saying, I can do this. It goes back to the confidence and being tenacious with whatever you decide you want to do. You have the ability to do it. And yes, surrounding yourself with people who are your cheerleaders, who are saying, you can do this. I mean, it's with sports. I mean, that's what we have fans for. You have fans in your life that are going to say, you can do this. Me leaving a very high paying job to do what I'm doing, but I'm the happiest I've ever been. It's not because I'm not reporting to anybody or working, for another company. It's because I'm helping people. I'm taking my experiences, my struggles, and going forward and helping other people that they don't have those dark times that I had to fight through, that I was like, I'm not going to say I'm going to quit. I'm going to get through this, because I now know that this is my new chapter. And next week I'll have another chapter. So it's just understanding that, believe in yourself, believing that the word no, it's just N-O period, but it's a short sentence, but it really means I mean, seriously, what does no mean? Not yet. I'm not ready. Never. I mean, it's all negatives. So it's always about putting positives in your energy. I'm a little woo-woo-ish. I've got my crystals and all that stuff, but I believe in energy. And when you self-talk yourself and you say, you can't do this, this is terrible, you're not successful enough and everything like that, that's not fair to you. I mean, we have to be kind to ourselves and understand that we can get through anything.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And, if you don't think the world owes you something,
Right.
If you don't think that there's an obligation for some reason to you that you don't have to something or someone else, I think that attitude of gratitude will keep you tenacious too. Because if you're always feeling you're short, you're behind, you may never catch up, how tenacious can you be if you're taking those passengers with you, right? When you can decide on any expedition, you choose your gear. Depending, if you're going to a cold place, you're going to have cold stuff. If you're going to the jungle, it'll be different attire and equipment. Right? And in life, you got to say, hey, what do I need here? Well, why don't we pack up some optimism, a little bit of confidence, bring in a couple friends. I mean, why not make it a fun time? I mean, if this is a big event that now tenacious has to come into play to achieve it, why would you go in shorthanded? Right? Why wouldn't you bring the best of the best? And you know what it is a lot of people say, that's great, I don't have anybody. And the people I have don't support what I'm doing. So where do I go? And that's why I say, if you plug into this group, that's here right now. You don't have to wonder, are they into what I'm into? Or are they with me? Plus, here's the thing, there's an obligation knowing you're going to be seen by everybody every day. and you're talking every day about what you believe, what you think, your stories. But when it comes to time to take action, right, then that's the true test of tenacity, right? When someone reaches out to you and say, can we have a call? And you say no or don't respond to them. And the next day you're going to see them and be everything's okay, and that's why I believe time does expose or promote you. And if you give time enough time and don't worry about the time, because things can't always be measured in days or hours or minutes. Some things, 5 seconds changes your whole world. And sometimes 50 years is never enough, depending on what your pursuit is. But here's the thing, and it's always been said, it's never the destination that matters, it's the journey, right? Because you only get to the top of the mountain for a short period of time, and then you climb back down and it's done. It might be a great honor, but you're not going to be there forever. And I think if you look at, like, I want to have fun when I'm doing it, and I want to have fun when I'm achieving it. It shouldn't be like I'm going to lose, get disappointed, sacrifice in order to achieve it. So, Harvey, what do you think? Or was it Christy's turn?
I just want to sort of interject. So I'm going to interject.
Okay, sure.
So talking about this group and talking about these LinkedIn Lives that many of us are building. And I've been where people have been where it's like, I don't have a support. I don't have anybody. I'm by myself. How do I go forward? And those were my dark days. Learning how to be vulnerable and having that conversation and just DM somebody, say, look, I loved what you're very authentic and transparent. I'd like to share my story. And you'll be surprised of the people who are going to have empathy for you and say, how can I help you? I'm here for you. And it's sincere. They don't want anything from you. They want to truly help you. And it's called the act of listening. And, right now the mental health is spiraling down again. And I know so many people are struggling that they're like, I don't want to burden people. I don't want to, continue to talk about that I'm spiraling down. Continue to talk about it with people, because the more you talk about it, the more the situation will get clearer, and you're going to start seeing ways you can get out of it, because you will have a support system. Don't ever think that you're alone. I learned that the hard way, because I kept everything to myself, because I didn't think anybody was there for me. Mm-hmm. And people are there for you, even the strangers. So I just wanted to let everybody know my DM's open. You know where to find me.
No, that's very important and very generous. And, the key is with something that we're doing on LinkedIn Live, and especially since we're doing it every day here, is you don't have to go full attack on anything, right? You can do little things every day to build trust, to reach out to people, to have calls about something that are beneficial to both parties. And that's why learning who people are before you have to really engage people gives everybody more time and more context in order to plan their next moves. But, most cases it's grab and go, instead of get to know people and then see what there is that you can collectively do together. Harvey, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I picked up on a few things that people have said here in the comments. There's been some amazing comments today. It's really something that's resonating with so many different people in a different way. So I really want to try and have a look at a few of the things that people have been said. Peter, he said that he used to put tenacity on his CV, but there's no more tenacity left in him. How does he regain it? And I think it's a really good point to put in there. And I think that the answer to that is you just keep going, you keep connecting, you keep talking to other people, and your tenacity is already there because you're here today and you're in the comments and you've already got up today and you're already doing this. So I don't think you need to regain it. I think it's right there in front of you. I think the other thing that I wanted to pick up on is the fact that that we're in a marathon. We've talked about books with chapters, and we've talked about a story and a long-term thing. And I think it's these little steps, I think that your goal can change. It's okay if your goal is changing, and then the steps you're going to take to get to that goal change as well. That's not quitting. And quitting is a very positive thing in a lot of ways. You can quit something for the most positive reason in the world. And there's so many comments coming in about quitting being a good thing. So it shouldn't have negative connotations. I think also having a simple goal. I'm going to share a story that someone told me, a lady called Tracy Cow, and she had a little toy in her bathroom and she called it Survivor Boy, and it had been there for 20 years, and it was a solar-powered Hawaiian dancer, and it just danced, and every time she went into the room, it just made her happy. Its goal was just to make her happy. It was a very simple little goal. During COVID, she moved it into her car, and every time she got in her car and she looked at it, it just made her happy. And it just carried on doing this little dance for the whole of its life. And it was just this simple little step and it was determined to do that. And I just thought it was a nice little story to share. I think what today is proving to me as well is that we all look at tenacity from a different perspective. And I think by coming together and learning how we're all looking at it and how we deal with it and how we're using tenacity in our life, it's helping us all. Everyone here is looking at these wonderful comments and hearing people's stories, and it's making us all feel more tenacious than we would have been. And I think we're all looking at those stories from that different perspective, and it gives us a new viewpoint. And I think sometimes when you're trying to go through your life being tenacious, you need to look at it from a different angle. You need to see it from somebody else's eyes. And we're all doing this right here, right now, today. And it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, Harvey, I couldn't agree more. And what I was just thinking about when you were talking is there's probably no one on this live that has heard tenacity said about 120 times in an hour, right? And if that doesn't impact and kind of pound the message across, the word is always a wonderful word based on who's sharing it with who and how they share it, right? And that's why text messaging leaves a lot to be desired, because you don't know emotion, you don't know intent, you don't know if it's serious or not serious. And that's why having live conversations puts everybody on a good position, because they're being seen as well as being heard, and nobody wants to look bad, right? People can leave you a message, it could be awful, and no one will ever see it but you unless you decide to share it. But when people come on a call with you, a Zoom or something like this, they have to show up. And to Christy's earlier point, which I think was valuable, when someone says no, my typical response is why? That's all. I mean, I got the no, and I'm not trying to crawl back or change it to a yes, but it would be nice to know why. Would you like to come with me to a show next week? No. Well, what does that mean? Never? This time something came up. And, if you don't ask that question, you end up with the question forever. How many times you say, I should have asked about that before I said yes? Or, I didn't even know, and now I'm committed. Or I said no, and I had no idea who this person was. You hear about the stories of the guy who comes into a Mercedes dealership with scuffed up shoes and holes in his pants, and nobody wants to wait on him because they assume this guy would never be able to afford this car. And I remember actually a guy who actually did that and didn't get that low with the torn up pants, but went in just to see the reaction. And before he left, he went up to the salesman and said, do you know I was here to buy 2 of your most expensive cars? And nobody even, who was standing around paid me any attention or respect. And I think that's why judging books by their covers, you end up reading books you shouldn't because they got a pretty cover, and you don't read the books you should because maybe they're a little worn out. So with that, we hit one hour on the nose. I try to respect everybody's top of hour because I know people are jumping off for appointments and stuff like that. So final words, Harvey?
Yeah, I think I just resonated with exactly what you just said there, that we never know people's story until we ask. And I think if we all come together and if we all communicate and work together, we can all show tenacity. And I just want to say that I'm always open for connections, for people talking to me, to understand their story and to help them. And that's what I'm here for.
Christy?
No, I definitely resonated that story. I've heard that story before. There's another one about a homeless man in front of a church. Ends up it was the pastor. Like he shows up and is like, "Look how you treated me, people." But no, just know that you are somebody special. You might not feel it right now, but you're somebody special, and you have a story to share, and you have success to live. And as always, I just love the hour in power. It makes my Friday, and hanging out with you and Harvey, Don, and no hat today for me because I got the hair color. But I'm always excited because I just I love reading the connection, the comments, because I like making me think. And that's always good. And you make me think, Don. You give me a word and I'm like, oh, how am I going to talk about this?
Well, and it's so beautiful how we've come together just in 3 weeks in so much harmony. And, we all meet because we all have something in common, which is we want to be better and we want to do better for others. And if that's all your two goals are, and the beauty of all these wonderful people in the audience, they're teaching us so much. Right? They're correcting us and complimenting us. They're saying, okay, you started this sentence, I'll finish it, or I'll add to it. And then all of a sudden you built a building by a word and then an insight and then a response. And it continues, it's like ping pong. And if you keep hitting it back and forth, if 45 people get one good thing that now changes their viewpoint, and more importantly, honors themselves. And I'll tell one final thing. When people are looking to hurt themselves, they should remember there's so many people in this world they mean so much to.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you get away from you and make it about it never hurts so bad. Right? So if what you're doing is a mission for doing something and not about you or for you, but you think of, and that's where people don't count right. They take things for granted. And you know how many lives would change for so badly, right? If something was to happen to somebody, and you know what everybody says? If I would have only known, right? Why didn't they call me before they freaked out or before they did something dramatic that you can't unring a bell? And that's what you got to consider. And if you don't have it, here's a great buffet to start building it, and earning it, and that's the key. It's not what you want or need. It's usually what you deserve is what you get. So be more deserving, put a little bit more, give a lot more, bless and forgive so much faster, and be grateful just for being alive right now with some wonderful people in a beautiful world that never gets fully promoted and exposed because there's not a lot of financial benefit to hope as much as fear. So glad to be on the hope side. I can't say how grateful I am to the audience, to Harvey, to Christy. And the nice thing is it'll continue tomorrow. This holiday never ends. So rest up, come back in 23 hours. Tomorrow we have a new host that most people do know. And she's Nicole Angay Galindo. I know I'm misspelling it or mispronouncing it, but she's great. Got a beautiful story. Sunday is Sarah Dawkins. A new lady you're going to have to watch, Catherine Chadwick, is on Monday. Andrea comes back on Tuesday. And Michael Aschenbrainer, I'm bad with names, is here for the first time. That's really part of Rocky's group. Can't wait to see him. So with that said, thank you all so much. Look forward to seeing you as soon as you have the opportunity, and have